I was preparing for my first project presentation to the leadership team from UK. That included my boss, Roger Woodward. He recruited me to lead the project because I had a very relevant experience. The project was about localizing a set of engineered products and make India the manufacturing hub for those products. There were 4 distinct product groups, namely T, S, A and P, just for the sake of understanding, arranged based on their rigor of application, T being the simplest. In the project presentation, I was seeking an initial investment of about $1 million and a break-even of 18 months. That was the indication given to me by my boss Roger. Such ballpark figures are not really meant to be the targets, but business leaders with insights offer such numbers more for setting the direction. When you launch a greenfield project, we need a starting point and direction. They serve just that. This was sufficient for me to get started. I first worked out the investments required to achieve various levels of revenues. Since the manufacturing processes were known to me from our principals in France, I had no problem in accurately building the investment versus revenue table. There were several listed light engineering companies in the country which regularly posted their financial statements in public domain. I gathered a few of them and compiled a typical profit and loss statement for various revenue slabs. Now I superimposed my revenue investments table over the profit and loss template. This gave me the profit that I would be making for a revenue by investing $1 million. I adjusted the revenue growth in such a way that we would break even in 18 months. This would be more or less completing my financial projections, the most important piece of any business plan. And then I proceeded to build the rest of my plan with my creativity. I had arranged my pack in an intuitive order. It helps in flow of thought. Someone mentioned, if your next slide explains the questions of the current slide, then you are with the audience. This has been my rule for every presentation I made. As a custom, I started with the executive summary that gave a perspective to the proposal. Then I proceeded to explain about the target market, its dynamics, a trend and outlook, etc. In the next 4 slides, I deep dived into the specifics. I picked one product and explained its application, market, competitors, order qualifiers, order winners, and strategy to enter and gain market share. I was smart in my numbers, for I gave not one target number but a range with a confidence level. This approach I have found help assessing the risks and thus enable better quality decisions. You as a project lead get a larger legroom to work with. For the finance guys who fund the project, this helps in scenario analysis. Having dealt sufficiently in market numbers, I switched my focus to internal resources that would be required to meet those numbers. I worked on each of the 5 resources, namely the manpower, infrastructure, ecospace, finance and information. The real challenge and highlight of my project presentation was the aggregate planning that integrated the market demand and the resources. The presentation proceeded to list a set of action items and timelines that included the decisions to be made by the leadership team as well, because this was the only time I could demand work from my bosses and rope them into the project performance. The Gantt chart highlighted the critical paths, slacks, and milestones which would be used for reviews. The presentation concluded with a pre-mortem where I had discussed the various failure modes and mitigation plans. The team considered the proposal credible though a little ambitious. I liberally used various analytical tools and models. I had run it through the finance head once before this presentation, who tweaked certain numbers to align with the organization policies. As a part of my project presentation, I had attached all the numerical workings as support data. Over the lunch, the CEO asked me a few questions and gave his approval to proceed. He also suggested me to moderate certain numbers, which I readily agreed. The case described above is a typical project plan development and approval process, which involved several analysis and decisions. All of them were long-term decisions. They employed standard tools and techniques tried and tested. Some of them might employ decision support systems backed by software. Organizations have specific templates, guidelines, and policies for making such decisions. They are rooted in empirical research and organization's history. The way people can and do make decisions varies considerably. Much early research has suggested on the way we are observed to make decisions and the way in which we should theoretically make decisions, and as a result, the range and diverseness of theory is very vast. From this theory, an array of decision-making models have emerged. Depending on their methodological foundation, these models can be classified either as descriptive, prescriptive, or normative. The case explained above can be considered as a normative decision-making process. Normative or prescriptive decision theory is concerned with identifying the best decision to make, assuming an ideal decision maker who is able to compute with perfect accuracy and is fully rational. Rational behavior is typified by a decision maker who has a well-organized and stable system of preferences and a skill in computing that enables him to calculate for the alternative courses of action that are available to him, which of these will permit him to reach the highest attainable point on his preference scale. The practical application of this rational approach, how people ought to make decisions, is called the decision analysis and is aimed at finding tools, methodologies, and software to help people make better decisions. The most systematic and comprehensive software tools developed in this way are called decision support systems. Since people usually do not behave in ways consistent with axiomatic rules, often their own, leading to violations of optimality, there is a related area of study called a positive or descriptive discipline, attempting to describe what people will actually do. Since the normative optimal decision often creates hypotheses for testing against actual behavior, the two fields are closely linked. Furthermore, it is possible to relax the assumptions of perfect information, rationality, and so forth in various ways and produce a series of different prescriptions or predictions about behavior, allowing for further tests of kind of decision making that occurs in practice. In recent decades, there has been increasing interest in what is sometimes called behavioral decision theory, and this has contributed to a re-evaluation of what rational decision making requires. As research has evolved, the distinction between descriptive and normative theories has become fuzzy. Normative theories have been refined so that they better describe decision making. Example, prospect theory, subjective expected utility, etc. Similarly, theories descriptive in nature have sought to introduce normative axioms. Example, the advantage model. This being an emerging field, new ideas emerge quite frequently. The recent technological advancements in medical engineering and neuroscience are also playing a key role in the fields of research. We will study them through this course. Thanks for watching.